Okay, thanks everyone for joining us. This is our second edition of the Homes and Money Mastermind. We had a great first session for those of you that were with us with Scott Euler. And this week's special guest is Julia Wesselkamper. And short story, Julie and I have never met before, and we met through the invitations of this, but come to find out, her buyer's agent and I have known each other for like 10 years. So small world in real estate, right? You always learn something. But I wanted to, first of all, welcome Julia, and thank you for being willing to help. I know you've shared with me, you have a passion to help other agents learn and succeed. And you mentioned just a couple minutes ago that there's plenty of business to go around, especially in a big city like Cincinnati. So
yes. Well, I'm honored. Thank you for having me. It's, humbling, truly. I'm so grateful for the invitation.
Yeah. So first question, where are you from, Julia?
I'm from Cincinnati, born and raised here.
Okay, great. And how did you get started in real estate?
So my uncle started the first real estate company in Montgomery, Ohio, downtown Montgomery. It was called Showcase Realtors. And my mother worked there, just kind of administrative background. And then she and my dad got married, and my dad started out as a realtor there. They were so young. I think they had me when they were 20 and 21. So they started their life early and dove into real estate. And fast forward, when I graduated from Indian Hill in 1986, my parents said, no matter what you do, we think you should get your license in real estate. So I did. And my dad became my first manager, and my mom worked at that time. We all did at Signature Realtors, which was like 100% boutique firm, and also started by Cincinnatian. And, I quickly just fell in love with it. I will say though, initially that I was literally paralyzed with fear. I've grown into a more outgoing person. I always say, I think I'm an introvert who had to become an extrovert, because I literally remember staring back in the day at the landline and my dad, again, my first manager and mentor, saying to me, okay, you have to call these people. And I literally think I would have rather gone, like, I don't know, cliff diving or something. I was terrified. So that's how it all started.
That's a really interesting thing that your parents' very first thing for you was, no matter what you do, get your real estate license. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, because as you know, there's always transactions that happen around us. And
Yes.
and part of your business is to make sure that you build such a referral network that people think of you to use you when they need to do real estate. So that's really interesting. So you kind of answered this, but you were with Signature, and then after that, have you been with the same brokerage for most of your career?
I always say I'm not a rolling stone. Not that, that's not a bad thing to take opportunity. But yeah, I started at 19 at Signature Realtors, and we sold to Coldwell Banker as a company in, gosh, I want to say 2001. And at the time, before that, we had actually purchased some Century 21 franchises to increase the size of Signature. And then that's what we sold to Coldwell. So I've really never left. I don't want that to be taken as, I'm there by default, because I thought, oh gosh, big company, I'm concerned, right? Because we're used to being so personalized and one-on-one, and our owner broker, which ended up being family for me, was open door policy, and back in the day would even type contracts for new agents. But I'm still here after all these years, because obviously I'm super happy where I am.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And then I think, so to be honest with everybody, part of what made me want to start this mastermind was I get questions all the time, and I'm not a real estate agent, but I get questions all the time on, when did you start building a team? How did you know that you needed to build a team, and where did you seek advice, as part of that? So, you feel free to break that down, but when did you start to build your first team?
Oh gosh, that is such a pertinent and relevant subject these days. So I never envisioned a team. When I started, it was really, a solo sport, so to speak. And I remember having, quote, assistants, right? I'd have an assistant. Um, and definitely needed that, at a certain point in volume. And then one day, I was fortunate enough to find out that I was going to have our son Chad, who's now 25. I didn't think I would ever be blessed being able to be a parent. And my mom came to me and said, "You can't give up like 10 years of this great career that you built. How about if we partner?" And she had just become licensed, because all those years prior, she was not licensed. She was in background administrative support. And I was so thankful. And so we kind of swapped roles. And I am getting to the answer of your
No, no,
question,
no,
but
this is good.
it's how it kind of evolved and, probably became comfortable for me, because it was, again, so solo back in the day as a role. That's all I knew. But so we became partners, and she became what I call more like the singer of the band. And I was in the background driving around literally with Chad in the car, doing staging at all hours when people weren't there, and or frankly, nursing even while I was on the phone with clients. It had a completely different landscape than, it did at other times. And that also is one thing I would share with realtors. Part of the beauty of our profession is that it can have different seasons. It can have different chapters, and that's okay. You don't have to be on this like, you know, 400-mile dash, trajectory. But that being said, so we became partners, and then as Chad got plugged into school and things like that, we would have an assistant, and then it was really the three of us. And then one day in the late 2000s, after, we were kind of doing our thing and going along very well, a friend said to me, "Would you talk to this mutual friend? She's thinking about getting in real estate, and she's, um, just, lots of things aren't seemingly, feeling great. And would you talk to her?" And lo and behold, I added her to my team, like on the spot at Camel Country Club over a glass of wine. So there was no strategy or advice involved at all. And hence a team was started. So I would give advice to do better research than I did. I led with my heart. And of course, I'm so thankful for that. And I think we have good memories, and she's doing well to this day on her own. But we kind of started really organically, and there's been different chapters. And so what I would say today to someone who's considering a team, one, I think the way to do business today is a team. I don't know how people are doing business without one, respectfully. Again, doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but I think that's business du jour. I think that's how, we need to function today if we're going to be elevated. I think that preferably people definitely do their homework, and you make sure that your systems and your framework is in good order. That's constantly going to be evolving and growing and changing, right? But I think that, and then I also think you really want to make sure that you vet who is on your team, and they vet you, because it's not an automatic that everyone has the same principles or perspectives, priorities, and or even personality bonding. So
Sure. And one of the big questions when you start to add team members, and in your situation, your first team member was your mom. So that could have created a unique dynamic. But when you start to add team members, like, how do you decide who does what and divvying up responsibilities? Or in most situations with real estate teams, is it more of a coverage situation? Like, hey, I'm going to be off tonight, you cover, et cetera.
that is a good question. Probably some teams operate like that. I do think also, by the way, there's not one way. And I think it's like a family, that, there's not necessarily a right or wrong, that it is unique to the individuals involved. So for me, And it's been 25 years now out of my 35 with my mom. So I can't say enough how fortunate and blessed I am. And we call her the OG. She's definitely a little gangster at 76, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
no, she runs circles around people. She's pretty impressive. But that being said, you know, we each, I think, find our niche in the team. And of course, I have a transaction coordinator who is stealth. Sharon, AKA mom, is kind of more so listing launch, overall health of the operation, in the details. Just I call her, I played soccer for 40 years, so I call her my sweeper. She's the person right in front of the goalie who makes sure that the opposing team doesn't score on us, right?
Yeah.
So she's just a sweeper of the details. Then I have a buyer specialist who's licensed in both Ohio and Kentucky and lives in Kentucky. So that's kind of her specialty, because believe it or not, after all these years, I never became licensed in Kentucky. Back to, I always had so much business here. I felt so thankful and didn't pursue that, but I love that Katie is. And then we have our newer buyer specialist, Kelly, and she's doing great. And she, I think, is really going to have special bonds with her generation who are, embarking on their first real estate purchase. So while she can handle a whole array, as can Katie, of clientele, I think that that's a really neat niche where she can really speak to her peers. And then I have an entire staging team of incredibly talented women. I actually lead an all-female team in totality for both the real estate team and the staging team.
Awesome.
Yep, pretty fun. And so that is kind of an all hands on deck approach. So while I have an operations manager, Jackie Klein, she kind of runs, I'll call it our playbook, with me, probably, as an analogy, being the coach. Then everybody just all hands on deck and we make it happen.
Great. Okay, so you mentioned the word niche, and as I look through the top 150, you can see different, transactions attached to volume, et cetera. So do you have a special niche that you typically work with? A special buyer, special area? Is there a niche that you would say that is kind of your specialty or your bread and butter?
I get told what my niche is often, and I always respond with, we are committed. Again, starting at 19, the only sweet, dear people who would give me a chance are expired listings who had been on the market, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, right? And they had kind of given up hope and they were like, get in here, we have nothing to lose. So I would say that my niche will always and forever be 0 to infinity, truly, wherever we can go licensed, because I always felt like people fly around the world to go to work. I certainly can drive up and down and around the highway, right?
That's good. That's good.
I'm told my niche is luxury. I certainly enjoy selling more luxury probably than many. We know how to navigate that arena, I would say. Well, we're blessed and thankful. And yet we truly, and it's not just a bumper sticker, it's real, are committed to helping people. So, again, whether it's $40,000 and something on Warsaw Avenue and Price Hill, and it's the property of one of my dear friends and clients' moms, or it's the estate, down the street from where we live. It's about people. It really is. I know that sounds like probably trite, but I think everybody, in our Zoom today also is committed to that, knowing, who is here. It's about helping people where they are, because in general, the same principles apply.
Sure. Sure. So just a little different spin to that question, and I think this will really kind of help your peers on this call. So you have a higher average sales price than most. Was this something that developed over time, just naturally, or was there a specific shift in your business plan that you started to change that number, so to speak?
Again, this is why you are doing this. You have great questions. And I do think this is helpful to people, right? Because a lot of people ask me, how do I get in the luxury market? And I'm sure Rebecca too. So one, I'm on third generations after 35 years. So, I mean, I would say part of it is by default, because in general, I do think there's a trajectory to quote, size up, roll up, right? Although those times might be changing, because I think that the young generation, they're more about experiences than, estates, so to speak. However, I also do think that if you live luxuriously and you love luxury, that translates. I don't think one necessarily sells luxury if they don't enjoy luxury or it's just not their thing. And that might sound silly, but it's not everybody's thing. Some people are like, boho, kind of chic. Some people are, supernatural or what have you. I'm not probably articulating this well, but I think that to be in the luxury market, one has to live predominantly that lifestyle. One has to be knowledgeable about that world and arena because it is unique. And I think that one has to also like it and enjoy it and be fascinated by it. And I'm all of those things.
Yeah, so it seems like you're saying two things. One, you have to change your circle. So you're in that market. You associate, you mentioned Kenwood Country Club, and you are surrounding yourself with people that would have luxury homes to sell. And secondly, you're walking that talk. That's your community, right? So yeah.
I think, yeah. And again, I think in any sphere, I would call it, it's so important. And I think the word authenticity is overused, but it's a good word. So it's okay to overuse it. I think to maintain authenticity is so important, one, in all that you do naturally. But in regard to our profession, whatever your authentic self is and the life that you live, I think that translates to quote your people. And I think your people find you
Oh
and
yeah.
you find your people, right?
Hmm.
So if that's luxury, then your people will know you and you will know them. Or if that is, for example, like you're just super into investment property, same. If you're just, really into like the Airbnb niche, I mean, again, that's a specialty niche, I think. So yeah, but I will say that, and this might sound, I don't know, a little bit too direct, but I do think that the more sophisticated the client, the more in touch they are with their preferred provider's authenticity.
Okay.
So in other words, people who are in those arenas, they will know if you are, proficient or not.
So, okay, sorry, I'm going to throw you a curveball. This wasn't on the list, but do you feel like and I think this is important, do you feel like your higher end client, do they care more about different details than say the average sales price client? Does that make sense? So are there, when you have your higher end clients, are they looking at numbers as much as the people that may be selling their first home, and moving up? Or is it more of a formality for them, and they really just have a high trust relationship with the individual that's helping them?
Gosh, again, another good one. Okay, so everyone, which I'm sure you already know this, right? Everyone who is selling a piece of property cares about the details. And for a large portion of the population, their home is their largest investment. So, I mean, obviously that drives a lot of conversations and questions and concerns, right? When we're in the luxury arena, it doesn't, I will say, equate to those people care more or less. Often, obviously luxury costs more. But what I find is that there are more, I'll call it, dimensions to selling those properties. And yes, there is more money on the table, but that doesn't mean that anyone cares more, because for most, it's one of their largest assets, period. So they all care equally.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I think my experience with the higher end clients is they typically have a finance person that blesses the transaction, so to speak, and so their conversations with the agent are different than, say, what the finance person's conversations with the agent would be. So, that's kind of where I was going, is they may be more worried about the staging and the appearance, and the interest rate may not matter as much to them per se, right?
Right. I mean, I think how it breaks down is that the more financially blessed, the more exposure one has had to things and to support services and such. And so, yes, there are probably more expectations from that.
Okay, cool. All right, this is my last question, then I want to open it up to anybody that has a question for Julia. But Julia, I don't want to say the word difficult. I want to say the word different, right? So 20 and 21 were just insane for us, right? We go through these ups and downs in the real estate, market. So this different market, right? What would you say is your best advice to your peers, in terms of succeeding today?
Good. Well, given again 35 years, and I was showing homes in Terrace Park the morning of 9/11, and that was literally on the TV as I was walking through the family room with my client, right? And then the next day, well, later that day, not to mention the next day, everything stopped. So I don't want to lessen what we're facing, right? But having been there, and in, of course, other moments in time where the market has not been vibrant. And I always joke, like 7% is so cheap, low. When I got in, it was 8.25 and quickly went to 11. I mean, we're still in single digits, people, but anyway, which you can speak to that. And I love this, by the way. I know I'm off on a little bit of a tangent, but somebody said this, and now I'm quoting this person: marry the house, date the mortgage, right?
Mhm.
So that's a little advice I would say that we can all give to our clients. But, at the end of the day, these times that are, I'll call them more normalized, and or, as we potentially venture into more challenging times, require the basics to be 100% in good stead, and that service for your clients is, your number one priority. And I think a complete commitment to integrity of information and communication, and doing every single thing that we possibly can to get them where they want to go, whether it's buying and getting them with the best mortgage person who meets all of their needs, and understanding how to best package that, and having a maybe longer term plan for the future refi, what have you, right? And or selling, positioning them in the very best way to where they are going to stand out over and above potentially a saturated market, which we haven't seen in a while. But again, what's it going to take to do that? These are the things I always say, and I'm sure everybody on this Zoom would agree, this is not brain surgery. It really is just about doing the things that maybe others don't want to do, and having the courage to have tougher conversations with your clients. They might not like what you have to say or need to tell them, but they're going to respect you for guiding them with integrity. And I just think those are the basics that we need to apply at all times when it's not, as easy. And, we're just kind of like writing contracts right and left.
Right, right. Okay, anybody have any specific questions for Julia? I mean, she's got 35 years experience in our market or our industry, and has been through this cycle multiple times before. Anybody have any questions for her? Okay, I do have one more. Wow, if anybody's wanting to unmute and ask a question. We've talked a lot about team, and we've talked a lot about integrity of the information that you're giving to clients, et cetera. How do you make sure, Julia, that you have this wonderful team of Kelly and Katie and your mom and other people in your team? How do you make sure that you're still relevant and involved in the transaction when you have such great teammates that do a great job?
Oh, yeah, important. I think that, that's really key, because I never wanted a client to feel like they were a handoff, because they are not. So we are all in, I'll call it consistent communication. We do a lot of group, I'll call it emails or threads, as Rebecca knows. We just were able to do 3 transactions with her wonderful team. And, we're all on, a group text. And so even with our wonderful friends in the industry, I think it's important that everybody knows we're all in this together. So I would say a commitment to communication as well as being present. The other thing that I'm sure, again, everyone knows, and you especially, Robert, because you're doing this, and that is that I think in this day and age, videos are so important. And whether it's, our Zoom calls that, really became popular through COVID, and or, a video just to say hello, or a video after a special moment in the transaction from me to the client, or even from me to the co-op, or even again with our team members. So I just think that personalized touch can never be overemphasized. And again, that's part of, even on my team, for example, Julie Johnson, she is, great with reaching out to people, and even through social media, just kind of leaving little touches with the notes and the inboxes and things like that. I just think it comes down to genuine, personalized communication, and it can be in all kinds of mediums because that's so accepted today.
Sure, sure. Okay, anybody have a question for Julia?
Everybody's doing multiple deals while they're listening. I know this crew.
Yeah, we hope so. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Julia, I really, really, really appreciate this. I've learned about you. I thank you for your investment in your peers and your willingness to jump on and be a guest. And I just want to say thank you for that. And I know your peers appreciate that as well. And again, I've got this recorded, so I'll share it with you. But I appreciate it, and I thank everybody for joining us today.
Thank you, Julia.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure, Robert. I thanked you in the beginning, but I want to thank you again for, bringing us together. I really believe we're a community. And as I shared with you, obviously we're all committed to our client care and best representation, but I also work hard to be a realtor's realtor because we are in this together. And so I just appreciate this moment for all of us to share. So I wish everybody a great day and look forward to our next transaction.
Yep. And everybody, next week's guest is Heather Herr. So I'm really excited. She's had some big launches recently.
Yeah.
So excited to talk to her and have her share. So I appreciate everyone joining, and I look forward to the next one.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.